Well, hello again, and welcome to another episode of the Hyperion Adventures Podcast. I'm Tom. As always, I'm with my gorgeous, super smart, and Hamilton-loving wife and co-host, Michelle.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
So good to have you with us. We are recording this episode, some of this episode, part of this episode on June 27th, 2020. We also recorded a little bit of this episode on June 20th.
I think so. So we have an A and a B just in our recording.
So, I mean, when you're listening to this, you may not realize that. But if you're actually watching this on our YouTube channel, well, you may notice we're wearing a couple different things.
Right.
I actually finally got my first COVID haircut,
Oh, that's right. It's going to be funny. It's going to see you short hair, and then all of a sudden
it's going to flash back to, 5 months of growth. So
I love it.
Yeah,
I
so
like
all the more reason to go watch the YouTube just to see the difference in my hair.
Right. And I love your Hamilton shirt.
Yes, and I love your tartan that you're wearing
right,
there. Is that for,
Well, he was a Scotsman.
He was a Scotsman
So
from the Caribbean.
Clan tartan, yeah.
He's a Scotsman in the Caribbean into New York.
Right.
And a founding father. And we're talking about Hamilton, and we'll get much more into Hamilton soon with our very special guest. Very excited about that.
It's so exciting that we got to meet up with them. And
it's not going to be the last time we're meeting up with them.
Right?
Well, not the last time talking about Hamilton. I'm sure there'll be some other times to talk about other subjects as well, but we'll get more into that in just a little bit. Thanks you for joining us today. In the future, you can find us most everywhere you get podcasts. However, the very best place to find us is on our own website, HyperionAdventurespodcast.com. And while you're there, why don't you go ahead and sign up for the newsletter?
That's right. It's a great newsletter. Tom does a really good job of that. And it's just another way of us connecting with everybody and sharing some information.
Yeah, that's it. We just want you to be in the know what's happening in the Hyperion Adventures world, whether it be, our podcast, they're currently running, what we've done in the past. Maybe it's something from the Disney Dishes blog. I'm putting out the recipes that we're putting out there every week on there as well. So whatever's going on, if you sign up for the newsletter, you will be the first to know.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you'll be in the know.
You'll be in the Hyperion Adventures know.
Wow. So special.
Another way to be in the Hyperion Adventures know is to also follow us on social media. We are very active on social media. If you ever want to contact us, follow us through there. You can find us on Twitter at Hyperion Podcast. Wow, I'm struggling, and it's early in the day.
I know. Although that was nice because you said it actually slow.
Which is very rare
most of the time
me.
where you're... Blah, blah, blah,
I'm trying to do my Lafayette impersonation throughout most of this stuff. Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest at Hyperion Adventures Podcast. We are on YouTube. You can find our YouTube channel. Hello, everybody out on YouTube. Just do a search for Hyperion Adventures Podcast. We'll come right up there. Subscribe. You'll know whenever we release a new video. And you can always email us if you want to contact us for any reason. Ask a question, suggest a topic, just say hi, whatever the case may be, at HyperionAdventuresPodcast@gmail.com.
Right. And another thing that we like to remind people of is how much we appreciate getting feedback, whether it be through email or through a review.
Right. A review is a great way to give us feedback. Let us know what kind of podcast we're doing. If you enjoy the show, if there are things that we could work on. And it also allows other people to find that show who have a like interest much easier. There's some algorithms or something that I don't understand that goes on out there, which is a lot of things that I don't understand that go on out there.
No.
Yeah. But that's one of the things. But really the easiest way for you to let people know that you enjoy this show, that they might want to listen to the show, is just tell a friend.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So as for today's show, we have lots of stuff for you today, including we have some information about a new Pirates of the Caribbean film that's getting ready to be put
exciting.
into workings. Yeah. And also Disney is retheming one of its fan favorite attractions.
I know, that's exciting.
It
That's
is
great.
exciting, but we've waited so long for this, so let's get right to it. Today's main topic of the week. So, Michelle, we are so excited about this. Obviously, we love Hamilton. One of the connections we made within the Disney community, yes, they are huge Disney fans, but just like us, they are also huge Hamilton fans. We
Yeah.
couldn't
Very
be
smart, very talented.
right. That's for sure. As we found out from our anniversary
I
episode,
know,
if you
right?
listen to that. We couldn't be more excited to bring on once again Keenan and Rachael from the Part of Our World podcast. Guys, welcome to the Hyperion Adventures podcast once again.
Good to be here again.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Very excited to talk Hamilton.
Yes.
It's a long time coming.
Oh,
I know.
man. And we thought we were going to have like another year to plan this because originally it wasn't going to be coming out till like October of next year.
Right.
And suddenly they put with this whole COVID thing, they pushed it all up. And now we're getting
Disney Plus.
Thank you, Lin-Manuel Miranda. Let's go to the main person.
Thank you, Lin.
Yes. So,
Turns
guys.
out we don't have to wait for it.
Very good. Quick.
I mean, he was
Hamilton
Hamilton.
puns.
Hamilton
Get
would have
ready.
worked on it nonstop. Burr would have made us wait for it, right?
Yeah.
As we'll get into
That's
here.
true.
Moving on.
Right.
So, guys, again, thanks for joining us on the show. Some of you, our listeners out there, probably know a little bit about you. I'm sure we have some crossover listenership, and you were on our show about 10, 11 months ago doing the Twilight Zone, Twilight Zone at the parks, which was kind of
hard
fun.
to believe that far back.
But just in case there are some listeners out there, who I'm sure there are, who don't know who you are, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves, your love of Disney to start off with, and how you decided to turn that love of Disney into a Disney-focused podcast?
All right. Well, first of all, if you don't know who we are, you need to go back and listen to the Twilight Zone episode. It was so fun
Yes.
doing that with you guys. And then we had you on our show to talk Marvel movies.
Right.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Yes.
Although I can't tell you what episode number that was. So take a minute. But partofourworld.net, search Hyperion, you'll find it. So I guess, to keep it short and sweet, since we kind of gave our story last time we were on your show, we started the Disney podcast in 2018
Yeah.
because we liked talking Disney and didn't want to annoy people in our lives who weren't as excited to talk Disney, but we needed an outlet to do it. And we had no idea what we were doing, as I think most amateur podcasters are when they get started. So just had a microphone, started recording, had some ideas for shows, and kind of took off from there. And now we're part of this Disney content creator community online that's been amazing and has enabled us to develop friendships with the likes of Tom and Michelle, which has been awesome.
Yeah.
It
I'm
has.
impressed.
It has been awesome. I mean,
Totally.
Keenan and Rachael have become two of our best friends that we've met out there. Although we've never met in person yet, we're still
Right.
hoping at
Yes.
some point we're going to get
Someday.
out there. Yes.
Yes.
So, but we've loved your show from the beginning. You guys have been big supporters of ours.
Right.
And if you haven't listened to Part of Our World podcast, definitely check them out. They're usually about bi-weekly. I think your episodes come out.
Mm-hmm.
And they really do a wide array of topics, mostly talking about the parks, but they also touch on movies. As we talked about, we did the Marvel one with them and everything. So definitely check them out. Now let's get into the important thing that we're talking about today. Let's talk about Hamilton.
Yeah.
Before we get actually into the topic, tell us a little bit about your love for Hamilton. How did you kind of discover this amazing musical, and how did it kind of take such a big hold in your lives?
So I'll let Rachel take the lead here because she actually got me into Hamilton.
Ooh.
Yeah. So this was one of my best friends, Meredith. She I think she texted me one day or just told me one day. She was like, "Hey, there's this musical," and she's like who I look up to as far as musicals. Like, she knows them and loves them, and we enjoy them together. But I'm not as well versed in all of them as she is. But she was like, "Hey, there's this new musical that has come out called Hamilton." Basically telling me, she's like, "I'm going to be obsessed with it and talk about it all the time, and you really need to listen to it because it's amazing." And I was like, "Okay, I'll give it a listen." And so I would just have it on in the background on the YouTube. They had the whole soundtrack, and so I would just kind of put that on just to see what all the fuss was about, I guess. And this was pretty early on. This was back in 2015 when this was early summer 2015. So yeah, I just had it on, and then it really clicked for me when I heard "Wait for It." Because I had it on the background. I was like, okay, like it wasn't totally, firing all cylinders for me. But then I was like, oh, what is this song? And so then I like went back and started listening to the whole series again, or soundtrack again, up to that point. Then I'm like starting to like look it up on Wikipedia and see like what the story is exactly and what's going on. Like, and so then it just kind of became more and more of an obsession from there. And so I was listening to it all the time, and I'm like trying to like get Keenan in on it. And I'm like, hey, this is really good. You should listen to it. Hey. And I was like trying to explain. I was like, it's like rap, and it's about the revolution and Hamilton's life. And when you explain it, it is like, if you just explain it with words, people are like, what? I mean, now it's so, it's very popular and people like understand more. But I think in the beginning, you're like trying to explain it. You're like, this is what it is. And you're like, okay. But it was when I played, what was it?
One Last Time.
One Last Time, yes.
One last time. Relax, have a drink with me. One last time. Let's take a break tonight, and then we'll teach them how to say goodbye. To say goodbye, you and I.
And it was a George Washington song. Oh, it was because when Obama was leaving us. And so I was like, this song reminds me of Obama. And so I played it for him, and he like, I don't know how he felt about the whole parallel with Obama or not, but the song itself, he was like, oh, and then I think
something clicked.
Yeah, something clicked for him there. And
yeah, admittedly, the first time I heard it and she pitched it as like, it's like a rap Broadway musical that's about history. I'm like, okay. And she played,
I think it was My Shot.
Yeah, it was My Shot. And I was like, this is like bad Christian rap. That's what I compared it to, because I was used to listening to, just mainstream rap
or Broadway musicals. Yeah.
Or Broadway musicals. Yeah, nothing in between. And I don't know, there was something about My Shot that just, it starts off with Lin-Manuel Miranda, who I love him, but his voice isn't the best. It's a little nasally. And I was kind of like, this doesn't really do it for me. So ironically, One Last Time intrigued me, and I think part of it is I could connect it with a moment in history, whereas My Shot, it was like, what's happening? Like, what's he talking about? So I decided to listen to it on my own. I was driving home from somewhere, and I was in my car, so I put on the YouTube playlist for Hamilton and started with One Last Time, and I was like, yeah, this is great. The very next song was Satisfied. Point on, I was hooked. And so for me, it's funny that she pitched it to me as, hey, it's this hip-hop musical, but in reality, it was more the R&B songs that kind of won me over. And now, as we'll get into in this episode and the one that we're going to do on our show, the intricacies of the rap is super appealing and one of the main reasons I love the show.
Right. Mm-hmm. There are so many levels to this. And yes, we will get that more on your show. By the way, this is a crossover episode. We're going to do mostly a spoiler-free episode, just kind of get you prepped for watching this when it debuts on Disney Plus coming up here on July 3rd. But we're also going to go over on Part of Our Worlds podcast on their show. And then we're going to really get into more of the spoilery aspects, really break it down, get more in depth in these songs. And there is tremendous depth. So many times that we've listened to these songs hundreds of times and we were still picking things out of them that are interesting. If you know, like Star Wars, if you think about the way John Williams develops a score for Star Wars and how the music, there's theme songs for different characters, and sometimes they blend into each other, and there's even aspects of certain themes. The same thing is kind of true of Hamilton. I think you'd agree, Michelle.
Right, definitely would, And I think how, we were talking about certain songs would connect with you and everything. And I know that we've had some of those experiences in real life too. And so, totally get that. These songs can really become a part where you find yourself thinking of them. I sometimes, like if I've listened to the soundtrack for several days in a row, I wake up from asleep and I'm singing Hamilton songs in my head, and it's like, oh my God, it's penetrated my brain.
It really does.
But it'll do that in a good way.
The other interesting thing about it, and you just touched on this a little bit, you guys, the fact that, everybody thinks of Hamilton as being, if you don't know it really well, you think of it as rap, you think of it as hip hop. But there are so many musical genres within it. As you talked about, Keenan, there's a little more soul. There's actual traditional Broadway. There's a little bubblegum, like English, Revolution 60s music involved with it. They're just, it really runs the gamut. And I think it really approaches different people in different ways. I don't know if you guys would agree, Keenan and Rachel.
Yes. So one thing is that I have moved to a place where I now teach Hamilton as a unit in school because I liken it to modern day Shakespeare. And that's one of the feedback that I immediately get from kids is I thought it was just X and it turns out it's XYZ, and they find themselves attaching their interest to certain genres. And it's really funny because you have kids that right off the bat want nothing to do with it. 5 songs in, they're like, this is great, or kids that are pulled into it right away. And then something like Helpless comes along, which is more of like a doo-wop. And they're like, oh, I don't know. It's not for me. So, but there's something for everybody, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And we discovered it. We had heard about it, and was that kind of interesting? And then we saw that it just kind of took fire, and then we found out he was coming to town in San Diego, and we have a subscription to the touring companies that come through San Diego for their Broadway shows. And I'm like, okay, well, we have a subscription. This is coming. This is exciting. We're going to have tickets for it. We should actually delve into this. And so I think I was actually going to get Michelle, or Michelle was already in Florida visiting her mother. I was flying out days later. I had downloaded the whole soundtrack, and I'm listening to it on the plane, and I'm just sitting there going, this is so good. I'm digging this. And then I turned Michelle on to it.
Right. Well, I think we also initially saw it on the Tony Awards.
Right.
And
that's true.
We're like, wow, this is different than what, you just heard. Oh, there's something about Hamilton that's a hip hop, rap kind of musical. And then seeing, some of the actual performers doing it in full costume on stage. It's like, wow, this is so different and so amazing that it really captured, I think, our interest.
Yeah. I mean, I even heard as I was doing some research for this episode, Daveed Diggs, who plays Lafayette and Thomas Jefferson within the show, he was talking about how when they first approached him, he and Lin were good friends for a long time. They first approached him about doing this, and they're like, yeah, it's this musical about Alexander Hamilton and hip hop. And he was like, okay. He didn't get it, And he was like, and he said, the sales pitch is not great on this show. You kind of have to experience it and figure it out before you find out. I think obviously you guys felt the same thing, right, Keenan and Rachel?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the Tony Awards though, Michelle, because I feel like if you have not seen Hamilton and there's you're listening to this episode and you're thinking, what can I do to see if I like it or not? That would be my one recommendation is, get on YouTube, watch the performance of Yorktown at Tony Awards and just see for yourself because it just captures the essence of the musical.
Exactly. Yeah.
In a single performance.
See, we already got a tip from part of our World Podcast. Yay.
Keenan and Rachel always have the best
tips.
Think of
one for later.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it really is true. And it really does show off a lot of the aspects of this show that are so great. Yes, the music's great. The characters involved are intriguing and interesting, but even like the lighting, the choreography, the stage, as simple as it is amazing. It really does showcase everything if you just want to get a small glimpse of it before we get into Disney's Plus version of it, which I'm excited to see what they actually do with this, because a lot of it is going to be some footage we've already seen, but I think they're going to expand on that a little bit.
Well, even like in the set, how they used movement of furniture to tell the story or to evoke the feeling of the story, when you're talking about either things turning upside down or hurricane and actually how they're bringing furniture onto the stage or taking it off or repositioning it, all supports that emotion that they're trying to display at that moment.
Precisely. Yeah. Precisely. And then they have the turntable, which is on stage, which provides a feeling of movement and, brings people in and out of the center stage of different scenes. It's really an interesting development and just a clever piece of of stagemanship there that really drives the story in many ways.
Right.
Yeah. The stage design is top notch and pretty innovative. And I don't know about you guys, but when we saw this live, and we've seen it twice, we were fairly far away both times. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing just a lot of the action that takes place on stage and the stagecraft up close and personal.
Yeah, we've been blessed enough to see it.
Right.
We've been blessed enough to see it from different angles. We've seen it from far away to the side. We've seen it from far away to the center. But we also, like, when we got these tickets when we were at Orlando,
Right.
That were like, they were elevated, but they were like literally on the left side of the stage, like right next. We can almost overlook the stage. So part of the stage, unfortunately, was cut off to us. But there was really an interesting viewpoint, since we had seen the show several times,
Right.
to kind of see a different look at all the choreography.
Yeah. I think we could have waved to the performers and they would have seen us.
True.
It was it's kind of at an angle that, like you said, it was closer to the stage, just off to the side quite a bit.
But true. I mean, as you guys were pointing out, this was, and Lynn said this herself, you will now have the best seat in the house,
Right.
not only for the show, but for the original cast, which, you're saying, hey, there's so many
Right.
people that brag about, hey, I got to see the original cast. Well, now you could be one of those people as well.
Yeah.
Maybe not on Broadway, but still just the same.
Which, yeah, I'm really excited about that, because the cast that we saw, it's like they were really good. We saw two different casts, and there was things we liked and things we didn't like or had to adjust to because like when you're so familiar with the Broadway soundtrack, because we've listened to it like 100 billion times, but it's like, wait, this isn't what Burr is like,
Right.
So, and you need to, when you do go see the musical live, you kind of have to go in like not comparing, but it's just hard when it's what you're
right.
used to.
Yeah,
So-
no, you're totally right. And I read somewhere that if you are going to go out to see the play, the best thing to do is not listen to the soundtrack for about a month beforehand, so you don't have that keen sense of comparison in your head at
Yeah.
the time you're seeing the play.
I feel like it's so ingrained in my head that I don't know if that would help, but
But on Disney Plus, it's not going to be an
isn't
issue.
long enough.
I know, right?
I mean, that's the one thing, it does get ingrained in your head. I suggest that for somebody who's interested in watching this, that it is good to listen to a little bit of the soundtrack, just so you can kind of get used to the metering going in, because it's hard to follow your first time if you're just going in there raw. It's gonna be tough to keep track of all these words. I think I read somewhere that there's like almost 24,000 words within this musical, and that was part of Lynn's idea why it had to be hip hop, is they wanted to get so much information in that the only way to really do it was to do that kind of metering that rap and hip hop provide. So that's why if you're not, ready to go, and at least I guess with Disney Plus, you can back up if you miss something, but it can fly past you pretty quickly and you can miss some points.
Yeah. Thankfully, we'll have a visual, which makes a huge difference. Because when you're just listening to audio, especially before you've seen the show, you're trying to fill in pieces of the puzzle and kind of imagine what's happening on stage. And I admittedly misinterpreted the events that when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's what they were doing, or that's what that's supposed to look like. So I think having the cues that we get from the actors and from the stage, you're right. It's still going to be tough to follow if you haven't heard it or aren't familiar with it, but you can probably fill in some of the blanks by just watching. Which, again, is like kind of how Shakespeare is. You might not understand every single word of the language, but you can see the way they're interacting with each other.
And that was another difference I think we saw from seeing it live versus listening to the recording of the cast album was, the acting that they actually provide. I mean, yes, there is a little acting provided within the cast recording, but it's totally different when you see fully body movements, facial expressions, the stage as a whole out there to take it all in. It's just a different experience, Michelle, right?
Much.
So as we mentioned, this is going to be the original cast, which is exciting. So let's just run through the original cast right here so you kind of know who they are and what the key characters that they play.
Okay.
So Alexander Hamilton, of course, is played by Lin-Manuel Miranda, who wrote this thing. Yeah.
Alexander Hamilton. My name is Alexander Hamilton. And there's a million things I haven't done. But just you wait, just you wait.
My man crush, our man crush, and I invited him to be on the
I think it's all
show.
about our man crush.
Right?
I keep hoping.
Still waiting to hear back from him there. Maybe he'll come
Keep
for part
hoping.
two.
I keep putting things out there in the ether, hoping he's going to come back and actually show up on the show. But No luck so far. Maybe someday. Also, playing Aaron Burr is Leslie Odom Jr., who is just amazing as Burr. I mean, he has such an amazing singing voice. Does a great job. Won the Tony for Best Actor and he also has the meatiest part. Aaron Burr is the meatiest part of this musical. I think you guys might agree, Keenan and Rachel.
Yes.
Yeah, Leslie Odom Jr. is my, I can't say man crush.
Your musical crush?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, because he does it.
Inimitable.
Yeah, he's inimitable.
Yep.
He's just so good in this role, and I feel like none can compare to him. But Burr is such a complex character. It's like you sympathize with him, but you you're kind of like, ugh, this guy at the same time, you know. But yeah, there's so many layers to him, and I know we're going to talk about it later, but the way he contrasts with Hamilton, it's just, it's so rich, his character, and just the way it all plays off one another.
Yeah, and I know this is a spoiler-free episode, but as we have learned from history, Aaron Burr is like the villain in the story. So when you said, Rachel, that you have sympathy for him, like, that really matters. Like, he's such a complex, deep character. And I am convinced, after seeing off-Broadway traveling performances, that no one will compare to Leslie Odom Jr. Like, he is the Aaron Burr.
Right.
Exactly.
I agree. He is the best Aaron Burr, and we'll get into another character here, or actor who played the character that I think so far is the best one in that role we've seen. But getting back to Burr, I think we can go ahead and give away the spoiler that yes, he is the villain because they give it away in the first 3 minutes of the show that he's the one who shot him. It's also been given away in Got Milk commercials from years ago. So you kind of know going in that Aaron Burr is going to end up being the villain when it's all said and done at the end of this thing. It's just how do you get to that point, which is really, really interesting.
Right.
Going through the rest of the cast, Eliza Hamilton, who is also one of the Schuyler sisters, played by Felipe Sue. I'm going to go by Pippa from now on because she likes to go by Pippa, and it's easier for me to say. Angelica, another Schuyler sister, played by Renee Elise Goldsberry. Just amazing in that role. And when you get to Satisfied, so good. That song is so good. And Peggy, and who also plays, there are a couple of cast members who play dual roles in this. And Peggy, and Mariah Reynolds is played by Jasmine Cephas Jones, and she has an amazing singing voice and does a great job as well. And those are the Schuyler sisters.
I've been reading Common Sense by Thomas Paine. So men say that I'm intense or I'm insane. You want a revolution, I want a revelation. So listen to my declaration. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. And when I meet Thomas Jefferson, I'ma compel him to include women in the sequel. Work! Look around.
Michelle, I know you love the Schuyler sisters.
I do love the Schuyler sisters. Every time they are on stage, I just feel so drawn to what's going on with them. And like you talked about, the actress that performs two different roles, and yet in the play, you don't get distracted by that. It's not like, oh, I remember seeing her do something else. No, she really is able to distinguish herself in each of those roles.
Yeah, so good. And she is really, really talented and has an amazing singing voice. And I mean, actually, she's actually kind of underused in this film. Or film. I guess it will be a film in this show. But I do think when she comes on, she packs a wallop on stage. Moving on through this, Lafayette and Thomas Jefferson, again, playing dual roles, is played by David Diggs, and it's another meaty performance. He wins a Tony Award as essentially Best Featured Actor, Best Supporting Actor for that. John Lawrence.
He's one sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say he's one that's hard to live up to as well, I think, because he just has such a unique voice and presence about him. It's like, I think we've seen the ones that we saw live were fine, but yeah, I feel like we're going to get the best of the best when we see this on Disney Plus.
Right.
I'm really excited to see them.
I mean, just the way he can rap and everything. It's just like, how can he get his lips to move like that?
Right.
I know that sounds really ridiculous, but I mean, he is just able to, evoke so much in such a little bit of time.
Yeah, there's some of this triple timing rap that he has to do that, it's amazing that he can get through these portions. It's stunning that he can rip these things off, so many words in such a short time. You'll be amazed by it when you see it.
Right. And what did they call the on Broadway where they each each night they would do a drawing, and they'd have some of the cast members come out and do little things within
The lottery
system out there. And so I remember seeing
about the Ham for Hams.
the Ham for Hams performances.
Yes, that's what it was. I was like, what was that?
Yeah. And so I remember one of them was having people just out there outdoors trying to mimic Lafayette's little rendition there.
Taking this horse by the reins, making red coats weather with blood stains. Feel I'm never gonna stop until I make them drop, I burn them up and scatter the remains down. Watch me engaging them, escaping them, and rating them out. I go to France for more fun. I come back with more guns and ships.
I've tried many times. I cannot do it. I can't.
It's really
I
cool.
practiced. I was trying earlier today. But
I want to hear it. Okay, now we got to hear
Yeah.
it. Come on.
no, I can't.
That's okay. I understand. I can't do it either.
So he knows what to do in the trench, ingenuitive and fluent in French, I mean. So you're gonna have to use them eventually. What's he gonna do on the bench, I mean? No one has my resilience or matches my practical, tactical brilliance. You want to fight for your land back?
I need my right-hand man back.
Fun fact about the Portable World crew is that we have done Hamilton sing-alongs,
It's true.
I guess, where we get together with a couple friends and everybody, for each song, takes a role and then sings along with the soundtrack. It's super nerdy, but a lot of
Right.
fun.
Yes,
And
very nerdy.
I'd love to do that for
anybody
like
who
a Zoom
tries to do
thing.
Lafayette is like just fumbling at something.
Yeah. I know. That's
we
when you
tried
just
though.
got to lip sync or something. You
Yeah.
just-
We should get together some night and do a Zoom meeting with a
Yeah.
Hamilton sing-along. I think that'd be a lot of fun sometime. We'll have to work on that
Yeah.
once people have been able to experience it
Right.
on Disney Plus and kind of get to
I'll
know
tell
it a
you,
little
you
better.
you pick your roles in advance and you spend some time practicing before the big night.
right.
I would imagine. That's really cool. I love that.
Yeah,
I
great
think we need
idea.
to put that into play for sure at some point. Also, John Lawrence and Philip Hamilton, played by Anthony Ramos, who's going to be showing up. He's worked with Lin many times
Mm-hmm.
recently, and he's going to be in the Heights movie, playing the role that Lin-Manuel Miranda played on stage
Nice.
for that. So that was supposed to come out, I
I'm
believe.
so
it's-
excited for that.
Yeah, I
Right?
think it was supposed to come out this summer, but like everything else, it got pushed back as well. So still looking forward to that too. Okay, let's see if I get this right. Hercules Mulligan and James Madison is played by Okriete Onandawan. Okriete Onandawan. From now on, if we mention his name, it'll be Oak, because that's what he likes to go by, and I cannot get that right. So it's going to be right.
Yes.
Here's another role that I think we have not seen another actor in our time seeing this show portray it as well as this person does on the original cast, and that is Chris Jackson as George Washington. He is George Washington. I know Michelle and I were talking about it before, and he's like, he's one of Lynn's best friends.
Right.
I'm surprised he didn't ask him to play Burr. And I'm like, but look at him as George Washington. Like, he commands the
Right.
stage. He is the general. He is the founding father out there when he's on stage. And I just think he's amazing. I don't know what you guys think from it. I know you haven't seen the original cast mostly, but you've probably seen some of the clips of him playing that role. What are your thoughts on Chris Jackson as George Washington?
Well, we may or may not have seen a bootleg version that exists. So.
Well, we may or may not have as well. So
Yeah.
I totally agree with your description there of commanding presence. And his voice, like I said, One Last Time was the song that won me over. And it's really like the way he carries out the end of that song. And yeah, unparalleled George Washington. I agree. Also, the singing voice of Moana's father.
that's true. Yeah, you didn't know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Actually, a lot of the cast of Hamilton, because when they were writing Moana, Lin was still in the cast of Hamilton. So a
yeah.
lot of this was done at the same time. So he would bring the cast in to kind of help him with some background. They did some demos of some of the songs that were in Moana. A lot of them kind of took part within that show. And even in the credits, it thanks
Right.
the cast of Hamilton within Moana.
Oh, I never saw that in the credits,
Yeah.
but I love it.
Disney tie-in.
Yeah.
Finally, King George is played by Jonathan Groff.
You'll be back, time will tell. You remember that I served you well. Oceans rise, empires fall. We have seen each other through it all. And when push comes to shove, I will send a fully armed battalion to remind you of my love. Da, 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 da,
Another
da.
Disney tie-in here. Yes, that's Kristoff. from hashtag Real Men Love Frozen.
Yeah.
Yes, Keenan's wearing the shirt. It's so beautiful. And, it's funny, for those of you who have not seen Hamilton or know nothing about Hamilton, it's a little odd that King George appears in this because there really is no point. He shouldn't be there.
Right.
Lin will even tell you he shouldn't be there, but somehow it just works within this show. And every time King George is on stage, he steals the show. It is the funniest portions you're going to see on the show. Michelle, I know you agree with that.
Right. I remember the first time we actually saw the live performance and he came out and I couldn't help but laugh. And I thought, I don't remember laughing when I was hearing just the soundtrack, but he's hysterically funny. Mm-hmm. I mean, did you all feel that?
Yeah, I think it's just his little, it's just the little mannerisms or just I don't know if it's like a dry sense of humor, but just I don't know.
Yeah, there's the sarcasm in the song. It's the tone of the song, his mannerisms, facial expressions.
The shoulder shrug.
Yeah, and we've seen it where he's doing other stuff on stage in other songs, not even his songs. He'll come out and kind of do stuff, and it's comic relief.
Right.
It really is. And, he's only on the stage for something like 13 minutes total, something like that. And yet he got a Tony nomination for it. As a matter of fact, the actor, and I'm sorry his name escapes me right now, that played that role in London actually got the Olivier Award, which, it is, a British monarch.
Right.
So, okay. But still, that shows you how important this role is, how impactful this role is, even though he's only on stage for 13 minutes. Michelle.
Right, exactly. And just kind of reflecting on what you were saying before too, and we might be hopefully touching on the theme songs and the sound of the music associated with him, which has that kind of like Baroque music, is just so interesting how they kind of tie that all in with this character.
Right. It's kind of Baroque, but it's also kind of very bubblegum, like I said, British invasion pop.
Right. Yeah. It's just kind of the type of instruments.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really cool mix, and we'll get a lot more into part of our Worlds episode on the music, but really good stuff. So let's talk a little bit about the theming of this show now. Now, we talked a little bit already about Hamilton and Burr and how they contrast each other so much. It just really is fascinating to dive into them. Hamilton, what you're going to find out in the show, is the person who goes after what he wants. He nearly died in the Caribbean, had to write himself out. You're going to hear all this backstory in the very first song, by the way, of how he got to the U.S. It's all laid out there for you. But he goes and gets what he wants. Burr, meanwhile, he's, I'm just going to wait and see what happens and just go which way the wind blows, and find out what's best for me. And it really is a contrasting style that comes up so many times within this show. I think you'd agree, Keenan and Rachel.
Yes. And I imagine this will be one of the heavier topics for part 2. But yeah, the contrast between Hamilton and Burr, and I think it's again so deep you could really dig into it. I do a whole when I teach it. It's like a central part of the unit.
I feel like you could write a whole essay on.
Yeah, you could probably write your dissertation on it.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah,
but
I liked how Rachel talked about layers.
Sorry,
I was saying I liked how before that how you talked about the layers in Burr.
Yes. I love Burr. I love his character. I think in real life, the real historical Burr was kind of like a thumbs down dude. Right. But you really just have, I don't know, a love and sympathy for his character. But it's so, I think it's because I can kind of identify, I'm more of a Burr type personality, at least in the show. Where it's I do, I am more conflict avoidant. I kind of want to roll with things and see how they play out and survey the scene, where it's Hamilton is just not throwing away a shot, impulsive, and isn't afraid to offend anybody. But it's it comes down to a moment in their life. And it's just how, I don't know, important each moment is for them and for us. And
yeah, Lin-Manuel Miranda is on record as saying something along the lines of when he was researching for this, he noticed how much of parallel lives they lived, and yet because of who they are, they made kind of opposite decisions in this most pivotal moment, and that's the climax of the musical.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Which we will delve into on your show for sure. But I think, one thing, just begin with, I think the best villains are ones you can sort of relate to in some way, shape, or form. I mean, the ones that are just totally off the rails, maniacal, crazy, or whatever, a lot of times they just seem one-dimensional and they just don't strike a chord with you. But people that you can okay, I can see his point of view a little bit. those kind of people, those kind of villains are the ones that I embrace the most. Michelle, I don't know if you agree.
No, I totally agree. And it's interesting looking at the two of them because at different times in the play, they each want what the other one has. It's just they still can't come to grips of how to approach life in the same way.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. But yeah, I mean, it'll go through as you're watching this show. You'll see it a lot. They run into each other a lot. Some of this was kind of it was changed historically for drama purposes by Lin, but the end is the fact that they were within each other's lives quite a bit, and so they kept running into these issues, and it is what ended up being the finale of this show, and the finale, as we've already talked about a little bit. As far as the music, we already talked a little bit about that. It is the metering you're going to find out that's going to be interesting for you, and maybe a little tough for you to take in at first, of course. I find it interesting, Keenan, and I it's funny because I think one of the first times we talked about Hamilton, I mentioned how I kind of believed it was very much like the modern day Shakespeare. You have taught him as Shakespeare. Maybe you can kind of address this better as how Lin and this musical specifically is similar to Shakespeare.
Yeah, I mean, from a teaching standpoint, I straight up replace the Shakespeare unit with Hamilton. And it's because, when let's say you're trying to teach about, you said metering, Shakespeare, it's all about iambic pentameter, but you're also teaching rhyme schemes and assonance and alliteration and all these different poetic devices, not to mention imagery, metaphors, similes, all that stuff. And part of what Lin-Manuel Miranda did that's so brilliant is he weaves this like tapestry of all these different characters and these stories and does it in a very poetic way that, yeah, it's hip hop, but it is what I'll have my students do a lot of times is just read the lyrics before we listen to a song and look at it as if you're reading poetry. And you'll see that it is very much just this, again, layered, complex poetry. And you start to pick up all these little, this connects to that. And, foreshadowing and all sorts of stuff where it's just, you really can. As far as an English teacher goes, I don't want to get too nerdy or boring with what an English teacher teaches, but I could teach pretty much an entire year's worth of literary devices just using Hamilton.
Wow. Do you find it a challenge?
I don't know if that answers your question. Sorry.
No, that's actually perfect. That's great.
Do you find it a challenge where you are teaching this without the visual of the actual play, or is it easier than to get into the content because you don't have that other distraction?
It's a good question. A little bit of both, because you can focus more on like literary analysis and close reading and all the boring stuff English teachers make you do when you're looking at words on paper. But I also show, I show the Tony Awards clips. I show Lin-Manuel Miranda when he first presented Alexander Hamilton to Barack Obama at it was like some presidential dinner or whatever. And it's before he had anything else really written. He had one song. So I'll show them that. I'll show them when the whole cast performed for the president, other interviews and things like that. Lots of pictures. So they can put visuals with the lyrics, but we're never watching it while we're listening to it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Totally.
So I kind of get to do both.
Very cool.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that if you haven't seen or listened to the soundtrack at all, I mean, the whole story is basically there's very few just regularly spoken dialogue within this. It's all within song, within hip hop, rap, soul, Broadway tunes. The whole thing is basically musical. So even different than many musicals in the fact that usually there's some sort of dialogue that's not sung.
Right.
But that is not going to be the case when you're watching Hamilton. So you kind of have to prepare for that when you get ready to go into this. I want to talk a little bit about George Washington. Yes, he's the founding father, but he is also Hamilton's kind of surrogate father within this. Hamilton lost his father, or his father left him, I should say, very early on in life. George Washington kind of steps in and, tells Hamilton every once in a while, like, hey, slow down a little bit here. You're going a little crazy. You got to mellow out.
Let me tell you what I wish I'd known when I was young and dreamed of glory. You have no control. Who lives, who dies, who tells your story?
Which is one of the key themes that goes throughout this entire musical. And also, remember, history has its eyes on you. Another key portion. And that comes from Washington, mostly talking to Hamilton.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can tell that Washington is always driving a lesson, and the interaction is also very much like a father-son, because Hamilton isn't always on board with what Washington is trying to tell him to do or his decisions. He's trying to prove himself, and he doesn't necessarily always see eye to eye, which again kind of goes with that father-son relationship.
Yeah, and we'll get more into that too as well on their show when we get really in depth into it. But it really is something to keep an eye on as you're watching the show, that not only is Washington the quote unquote father of our country, but he was very much Hamilton's father in this play. It's really, really interesting. One thing I want to talk about, yes, a lot of these characters are the founding fathers, yes, but they all have flaws and they all come out within this show. And I think we're seeing a lot of that play out right now during these times. As a matter of fact, it was interesting, a quote that was in Hamilton's America from David Diggs that I want to play really quickly, talking about Thomas Jefferson.
You don't have to separate these things with Jefferson. He can have written this incredible document and several incredible documents that we all sort of with things that we all believe in, and he sucks. I think those are both true, and those have to be both true. I think we really have to stop separating them, because that's where you get into trouble. That's when you stop letting people be whole people.
So, just an interesting point, because that's one of the characters he plays, and he had to wrap around the fact that Jefferson is a slave owner, and that comes into play within this musical as well, that he's not a perfect person. Yes, he wrote the Declaration of Independence. He's done all these amazing things, but he was also, a terrible, terrible slave owner. He treated people miserably. And this goes for all the characters. I don't know what you guys think about, the interesting depth that they provided for some of the, I know I'm sure we'll get more into that on your episode too, but just kind of to touch on it for people who are about to watch it, Keenan and Rachel, what you thought about the depth of all these characters and showing that they're not perfect.
It's definitely intentional that Lin-Manuel Miranda cast, aside from King George, an entire cast of people of color, and that there's rich political statements being made in the play that are relevant today. And this is something I love about it, right? It's about the late 1700s, and yet it's relevant today because of the way he chose to tell the story, the things that he chose to focus on. And yeah, you're fighting for independence and all these other things, but people are still fighting for a different kind of independence today. But at the same time, by giving these characters these kind of inherent flaws, or historically they have these inherent flaws, it makes you kind of just not fully sell out to their ideals. So I don't know. It's hard to explain without going too much into it, but there's modern issues being raised by the characters who existed historically in the past, and taking some liberties in how they're portrayed as well.
Right.
It's true. There were some dramatic liberties taken in this, but I mean, most of these things that they're talking about with these characters are true. Jefferson, was a slave owner. We all know that, but he also did these amazing things to build this country, you know? So it's just a weird position to, what do you think about him? I'm sure we'll delve more into deep in this, but just know that as much as this is a story celebrating Alexander Hamilton and these people, this movie, this play shows that he's not a perfect person, and none of this cast is perfect. And that includes, I was just talking about George Washington as the founding father. It shows that he's not perfect as well. Moving on, I just want to talk about one other thing as far as the cast involved, and that is the ensemble itself. Now, as you're getting prepared to watch this thing, just know that the cast, yes, they go out there, they do a wonderful job dancing, they do set up props, but they also act many times as the conscience within this play. I mean, a lot of things that they're shouting out or singing out from the kind of in the background is acting as these characters' conscience, or what they are wishing their conscience, because they don't listen to them often. So, but it's just an interesting thing involved in the songs. I don't know what you kind of think about the ensemble and the way they're portrayed within the soundtrack and within the play itself, Keenan and Rachel.
Yeah, I love that. I love that I think I knew that they acted as the conscience, but describing it that way, it's kind of gave me chills for a minute, because it's that is true. It's such a rich ensemble, and they're so talented too. But yeah, I think they add so much to the story, which you can hear when you listen to the soundtrack, but just seeing the way they interact with the main characters and how they do, like Michelle was talking about, with the props, and just adds that full picture and so much depth to what is going on.
Right. it's like very subtle,
Right.
like your conscience is subtle.
Right.
And so how some of that comes through in their behind the scenes kind of acting or songs and things, it's just a subtle layer to it.
Yeah. Again, and we'll talk much more about this coming up. I'm more feeding into what's coming up. But I also want to tell people, look, when you watch this, you're going to take it in a first time. But when you listen, the more you're going to watch this, you're going to take in different things. You're going to see so much more in this. And that's why I'm also trying to sell part of our world show when we go on with them, is because there is so much more depth to this that we can get into eventually that you're going to find on further viewings, on further listenings to the cast soundtrack, Michelle.
Right. No, I totally agree with that. And again, just if you listen to the music, the soundtrack, watch the performance, it's an amazing experience that you live through with that. And so even if you do that, you're going to have a great time with this performance, would be what I would sum it up like.
There is one other cast member that's kind of part of the ensemble that I want to point out to you, and that is the person that plays what's called the Bullet, okay? There is one character that you're going to find with this that is continuously going to arrive in certain situations. It's a really interesting character, and this is something that I want to tease, again, for part of our World podcast, because we're going to delve deeply, I'm sure, in part anyway, into the reoccurrence of this character within the show, because it's a fascinating thing once you figure out who this person is as a part of a cast and where they keep showing up.
Yeah. I mean, and again, it just adds to the fact that Lin thought of so many details. Well, not just Lin, but his whole, the whole group that
Rachael,
right,
Eddie Blankenbuehler,
came up with.
The entire group. It was Alex Lacamoire,
right,
the entire group that put this thing together.
You know, that they had really thought of a lot of details.
Yeah. But that is just really cool stuff. I don't want to get too much more into the play because we're starting to broach into the spoilery subjects, because it's tough to do because we just love this show so much that's what we want to do. Right. We could sit here for hours and just break this thing down. And we're going to do at least a portion of that coming up here on Part of Our World podcast. Right. But
I'd really be interested.
We'll have to keep it from being a 3-hour.
Yeah.
Tough.
We'll keep it normal length, but it's really hard not to just go
right
off the deep end into talking about some
what
of this
about
stuff.
this? Yeah, I had another thing to say about the conscious thing. I was like, but it might be a little too deep for.
Kind of makes me want to watch it with somebody who's never seen it before. And I know your tip from a couple weeks ago, Tom, to listeners is to listen to it before you watch it. But I would love to sit and watch it with someone who's never seen it before, and then a song like "Burn" comes on, and I'm just like, what do you think? What do you think?
Right. Yeah. It's funny because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, could you do that as a Zoom meeting, and kind of do a watch party with somebody else who hasn't seen it yet?
I think it's going to be easier to do it with Disney Plus than it is as a stage performance. One, it's tough to get really good tickets, where you can really see everything going on,
right,
as we all know. And also, when you're there and you're paying a lot of money for this thing, and it can go by really quickly when you haven't studied into it, you don't really know what's going on. You could kind of feel a little lost at times. You can feel like you're drowning within all these words that are being spat out at you at times. Whereas when you're watching it on Disney Plus, it's going to be presented right there in front of you. And if you miss something, you could back it up, or you can rewatch it or whatever. So I think it's going to be a lot easier for people, and they don't feel like they're scuffling it. Because I have heard some people that most people love it. I'd say 95% of the people that go see the show that I've heard, they love it. But I have heard some people say, I just couldn't keep up. I just couldn't understand what was going on half the time, and they got lost in it, and so hopefully.
I was sitting next to sitting next to a person at our first performance, and King George came on for the first time, and so something you won't have to deal with when watching it on Disney Plus are people talking through the performance, or if they do, you can
why is he doing that?
He was like, I don't get it. Why is this funny? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm going to strangle you right now.
Right?
I'm trying to, it's like I'm seeing this for the first time. And his wife's like trying to explain it to him, like, oh my gosh. So if you need time to pause and reflect and ask your person questions, it's okay to do that.
In the comfort of your own home.
Yeah, in the comfort of your own home. And not the girl next to you won't want to punch you in the head.
Right.
It's actually one of my pet peeves that's going on right now. And it's like virtually every time we go see a musical or play or go see even the movie.
Even the movie.
Yeah.
Right.
And just people just thinking they're on their own couch in the living room talking to the person next to them, asking questions. It's like, no, ask the questions afterwards.
Right.
Watch the movie. You're messing it up for the rest of us, okay? Anyway.
No, don't get me started.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, considering this is, hopefully an episode that's going to help people who haven't been exposed to Hamilton or haven't seen it, maybe have heard the soundtrack. Love to hear from you, Rachel and Keenan, on what would be some of the things that you think would be helpful either to know or to watch for to have somebody have that first experience be its best.
I was thinking, and I am kind of a person where it's like when it is all coming at me, I cannot process. And even, I maybe recommend this for all musicals, but this one, since it is very fast paced, kind of looking up the story ahead of time, like just like looking up the synopsis. Maybe if you don't want to see spoilers, but at least look up like the plot or.
Could read Ron Chernow's biography.
Oh, that take a little while. So this is
like
more,
8 inches
you know, I'm
thick.
more of like a Spark Notes. What's the word?
Cliff Notes?
Cliff's Notes. Spark Notes was like my day and age. I like the Wikipedia condensed version,
Right?
myself, just to see like what's going on here. So that's helpful for me.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Keenan?
Yeah, so Tom's advice, you could listen to it. That certainly would be one route. Some people I can imagine maybe don't want to know the full story. And you do, if you listen to the soundtrack, you do get the entire play. There's one song missing from the original Broadway recording. And like you said, Tom, there's no dialogue in between. But it's not like Les Mis where they're singing dialogue throughout the whole thing, which I can't stand, actually. So sorry if I just offended some Les Mis fans like my wife. So, I don't know. So maybe if you're in that boat, again, the teacher in me coming out, what you could do is just familiarize yourself with the characters. So starting with this episode, I think if you're listening and you're intrigued, but you have no exposure to Hamilton, you're in a great place. You could take it a step further by maybe putting a visual to the characters, seeing what Hercules Mulligan looks like, seeing what George Washington looks like. So when they're coming out on the stage, you're not like, wait, who is that? And what's that guy doing? You kind of have a face to a name sort of thing.
Yeah,
cool.
Good point. I think they also do a good job with the costuming, so you know right off the bat who are the main characters. The ensemble is pretty much dressed in kind of off-white, and so you'll know them. And then the main characters come out, and they are distinctive within their colors. Hamilton and Burr are completely different. Jefferson, completely different. And so you kind of have the idea of who they are, and that kind of helps as well.
Right.
I think you agree, Michelle.
Oh, definitely. Even like the fact that, we talked about themes reoccurring with the characters, even though their costumes may change somewhat, they have similarities that connect them. It's like the line thread through them is similar. So
I think the biggest thing for me confusing the first time was the fact that actors who play characters in Act 1 change their role in Act 2. So that's maybe another thing to kind of pay attention to understand, okay, Daveed Diggs, the guy who's playing Lafayette, he's going to look different, but he's also playing Thomas Jefferson in Act 2, and just being ready for that switch.
Right. So do you all have like songs that you either associate with yourself or that for some reason you just like at a certain point in your life said, this is kind of like my theme song, or something in relationship of that song to yourself?
Yes. Do you want to go first?
Go ahead.
So, what was it? 4 years ago, I was leaving one school and applying for a dream job. I was a middle school teacher. I wanted to teach high school in this award-winning district. And on my way to my interview, I'm listening to My Shot. I'm pumping myself up.
I'm past patiently waiting, I'm passionately smashing every expectation, every action's an act of creation. I'm laughing in the face of casualties of sorrow. For the first time, I'm thinking past tomorrow. And I am not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. Ayo, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot.
I think I listened to it on a repeat, just like going to this job interview and got the job. And so it's like forever solidified as like, I'm not throwing away my shot. And now I've got this awesome teaching job that I love and get to teach Hamilton.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like so many of them. Like, so it's hard to say, but I love Eliza. You said all characters have their flaws except, and I'm going to add except Eliza. She is a perfect.
Sure.
She's the heart of the show.
But-
She's the heart of the show.
She's so great. But one song that I listened to and that kind of makes me, I don't know, it makes me think of meeting Keenan the first time is Helpless, and just like those first,
Right.
I don't know, those first moments of meeting, and she's just, smitten by him and just talking about, those first before they get married and things like that. So
You looked in my eyes and the sky was the limit.
yeah.
And you look back at me and suddenly I'm helpless. Oh, look at those eyes, and I'm helpless. Down for the count and I'm drowning and I'm helpless. I'm so into you. Look into your eyes, so into you. I'm helpless. I know I'm down.
does have lovely eyes.
Very nice.
Very
Very
cool.
nice.
So that's one. But I love the Burr songs too. Wait for it. Like I said, just because personality wise, I do identify as more of a Burr. And that song is just so good.
Right.
Right. It is. It's great.
Yeah.
That's another one you can look
Fills
up.
my soul.
They did a little pre-Tonys thing, like it was an ad. You can find this on YouTube, where it was actually one of those surround, like the virtual surround videos or whatever, but it has the entire cast there and just Leslie Odom Jr. in the cast. It's all a cappella singing "Wait for It." If you can find that on YouTube, it's spectacular. It's amazing. Definitely try and check that out as well. Michelle, what about you?
Well, it's funny because I had kind of opposite, but same kind of theme as what Keenan was saying. I was actually going through a struggle with something in my life with work. And I actually found solace in that one last time and that, what can I do for myself, first of all, to feel that I've done something that even though it didn't turn out the way I thought, it still had some merit to it. And, really changed my reflection on not being as hard on myself, but to say that, we're going to make mistakes. We're human. And it's long as it's not the majority of our time, then it's okay, and you can survive past that.
It's a good point.
So,
Really
yeah.
good point.
What about you?
Well, I wish it was nonstop. I am not nonstop, unfortunately, for myself. But just talking about songs, Nonstop grew to be one of my favorite songs within this. I always thought at one point that Yorktown should have been like the closing number for the first act. But then the more I listened to Nonstop, the more I realized it's unbelievable and it is the perfect way to end the first act. But I think it's Room Where It Happened.
No one else was in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened. No one else was in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened. No one really knows how the game is played, the art of the trade, how the sausage gets made. We just assume that it happens, but no one else is in the room where it happens.
I always want to be in the room where it happens. The room where it happens. The room where it happens. Unfortunately, I like you, Rachel, I'm a little bit more Burr than I'd like to admit at times. But that is one thing is like I want to be in the room where it happens all the time. And another show-stopping number. It's so good.
So I have another question.
I guess Lin-Manuel. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Lin-Manuel Miranda had a tweet, I guess, like, "Happy birthday, Leslie Odom Jr. I gave you all the best songs," or something.
That's true.
There's some truth to that.
Yeah.
You're going to give the best voice, the best songs. I mean, it should just make sense.
Right. So if you were in your car, short drive, one song from where you're starting to your destination, which one would you play from this play?
Oh, my goodness. Do you have one?
Yeah, Yorktown.
Yeah.
We gotta go, gotta get the job done, gotta start a new nation, gotta meet my son. Take the bullets out your gun, the bullets out your gun. We move undercover and we move as one. Through the night we have one shot to live another day. We cannot let a stray gunshot give us away. We will fight up close, seize the moment and stay in it. It's either that or meet the business end of the bayonet. The code word is Rochambeau, dig me? Rochambeau. You have your orders now, go man, go.
It's somehow that has become my favorite song, and like you, Tom, I thought for the longest time it should conclude. It's such an epic conclusion to Act 1, but Nonstop is very fitting, and then there's a medley and all this stuff that so musically it also fits. But Yorktown has kind of taken its place as I think my go-to song. Maybe not favorite, my go-to song in Hamilton.
Yeah, me too, actually. And again, it's funny because when I'm listening to the soundtrack, I'm thinking when I hear that song, oh, it's the end of Act 1. And it's so funny that we all have that essence when we're hearing that song. Okay, Rachel, one song.
I'm all over the place. It's like, am I feeling moody? Do I want to belt out a song as I'm, driving? Do I feel like crying right now? Because if that's the case, I'll listen to Burn and just cry.
Yeah.
Or it's Quiet Uptown or really anything from that too. But
wrecks me every time.
Yeah, the first couple notes of the piano, I'm just like, ugh. I just immediate tears. But I'll probably have to go with Nonstop as well because I love that song.
How do you ride like tomorrow wanna ride? How do you ride like you needed to survive? How do you ride every second you're alive? Every second you're alive, every second you're alive.
it does, like, it shows that contrast between Burr and Hamilton once again, which I just love. And I think it showcases Burr's voice once again, or Odom's voice, really. But yeah, and you can sing all the different parts. You get a little bit of everybody. And so.
Right. True.
Yeah.
Switch around. It's fun.
I love Nonstop. I've grown to love it more and more the more I've listened to it. There's so much depth to it. Everybody's theme song comes into play within it. Like I said, different characters have their different theme songs, and it all comes into play in that. And it's a perfect capper to Act 1. Right. But Yorktown, World Turned Upside Down is my song. It's the song that I try and make sure if I'm doing a Run Disney race, that I time it out, that I'm hitting a certain point as I'm expecting to cross the finish line. Don't always time out that way, but that is my goal. And a couple times it's happened, and it's the best when you get to that point where it's just going right around when Hercules Mulligan shows up and you just go. Is a phenomenal number. It's a showstopper. It drives the crowd, just goes crazy. And I hope this is the one thing I hope from Disney Plus is that a lot of times when you get these, stage to screen presentations, you don't get the crowd involved into it. And I do believe that the cheering that happens at certain points within this show adds to it. Like, the immigrants, we get the job done. The cheering that goes on during that, some of those moments, it brings it up. And the cheering that happens in the middle of Yorktown, it just makes that song even that much more. But I love it we listen to the soundtrack and I love it just the same. But being there, seeing it live, it just takes it to another level personally for me.
It's funny you were talking about
chills over here.
Right? When you're talking about listening to the music during running, when I'm running, just like in preparation for a race, I actually start with the soundtrack from Act 2 because when I'm running, I tend to go faster than I need to, and then I get worn out.
She's always trying to figure out what did she miss.
Yeah. So I like going with that because it slows my pace down at the beginning, so I'm not all out of energy at the end of the run.
That's a good point. Yeah. Anyway, well, we've taken too much of our time so far already today, but this.
I have one more.
Oh, you
song.
have one more. Sorry.
What's your little kitty's favorite song?
For a while, he would request "Da Da Da," which is any King George song. Right. Yes. Remember that when he was like?
He's like 2.
Right, because I got into it right when he was born, and so like he grew up in those very early years.
Brought him up the right way.
Dear Theodosia is also very close.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah, he loved that one, too. Yeah, so we would sing that to him, like, before bed and stuff like that. But he, like, getting in the car, he'd be like, can you play da-da-da?
And you do your
Nowadays, he's not as into Hamilton these days, I would say.
Yeah.
But we'll get him.
She says that we just haven't been playing it as much, but I've been listening to it lately, and I was running some errands with him earlier today, and we were going to Home Depot, and when we got to the parking lot, I turned off the car, and we were listening to, I think it was Alexander Hamilton, and he's like, wait, can we finish the song?
Oh,
very cool.
Nice.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
So he's still a fan.
Awesome.
We just need to
acclimate him.
Before we sit him through the 3-hour show.
I mean, we were actually the same way. I mean, I think that we were listening to it. Like every Saturday, I would listen to Hamilton for the longest time. That was my Saturday tradition. I would listen to the whole thing. Michelle would be somewhere else. I'd be in my chair, ugly crying when Quiet Uptown comes out, And,
I'd be running.
So it was just kind of this thing. And then, after we weren't seeing shows for a while or whatever, it kind of drifted away. But over the last few weeks, knowing that it's coming back to Disney Plus, knowing we were doing the shows, we've been playing it more often. Just the other night, we have on our DVR Hamilton's America, which was a PBS special that they played, kind of just exploring the show, came on. It just brought all that more excitement rushing forward again. I cannot wait for Hamilton to debut on Disney Plus on July 3rd. I'm just so very excited for it. So, guys, thanks so much for joining us for this. Everybody, please stay tuned. We are going to be also delving more deeply into Hamilton. I know we've touched on some deep subjects already, but there's a lot of layers to this that we didn't even broach. We can't wait to join you guys, Keenan and Rachael, on Part of Our World podcast and really break it down. Yes, limiting ourselves to 40 minutes, an hour, whatever is going to be difficult, but we're going to do our best. Please tell our listeners where they can find your show and how they can follow you on social media.
So, thank you. Everything under the sun can be found at partofourworld.net. You can get all our shows. My travel agent stuff is on there, but you're not going to interact with us very much there. If you want to, you can find us on Twitter at POOW Podcast.
And on Instagram, we are Part of Our World Podcast.
And Facebook is also Part of Our World Podcast.
Nice. And we'll post all those links in our show notes so that people can find them easily. And so if you haven't subscribed, which you should have already subscribed because they do a great show, but if you haven't subscribed, where you can find the next show that we're doing on Hamilton, our crossover episodes, right, Michelle?
Exactly.
Yes. So, guys, we've taken up way too much of your time, although we could talk with you for hours about Hamilton. So we'll just have to wait until your episode and talk some more. Thanks again for joining us here on the Hyperion
Thank you
Adventures
so
podcast.
much.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Can't wait for part 2.
What's your name, man? Alexander Hamilton.
So there you have it, our look at Hamilton, at least the beginning look for those of you, just to kind of get you indoctrinated into what Hamilton is. And boy, that was fun with Keenan and Rachael, wasn't it?
They're always a blast to talk to. They really are. They're such wonderful people. And as we said, we're so appreciative of them joining us. And hopefully you all have found this to be helpful in preparation, especially if you haven't seen, the play before.
I can't tell you how excited. It's palpable in this household. How excited I am for Hamilton to be on Disney Plus on July 3rd. Video clips have been coming out, just short little things. I put it out on Twitter. I watched this little 49-second clip that they put out, and I already picked out 2 things in it, at least 2 things that I did not notice when watching it live. So it just makes me wonder how many things are going to blow my mind when we see this thing like front and center on Disney Plus.
Right. And, it's great going out to a play. It's really fun and exciting, great date night. But to know we're going to see this, one, best seats in the house, and also with the original cast. So it's not like, oh, gee, are we going to have a stand-in, which we've talked about how that, was something that we've experienced. So this is so exciting that it's going to be like perfection.
Right. I couldn't be more excited about it. So
really?
Yes,
Couldn't tell.
As you could tell. As you could tell. For weeks, for months, for years now, I've been very excited about this. And we will let you know when we get to that second part of the Hamilton crossover episodes with Part of Our World podcast. And as soon as we figure out when that's going to drop, we'll let you know. We'll post all the links everywhere. There'll be links to Part of Our World podcast in our show notes here. So you can check them out for other shows as well, but definitely for when we drop the second part of this crossover episode.
You got it.
Yes. So let's get to our Disney stories of the week. We always have so many Disney stories, and this week is no different. I'm going to start with the fact that we had some really big news this week in Disney, and that is that they are reimagining one of the most popular attractions, both at Disneyland, but also at the Walt Disney World Resort.
I know. This is awesome. It's going to be wonderful. Love the theming. So I'll let you announce it.
Yeah. So this is straight from the Disney Parks blog, as it usually is. They say, we are thrilled to share a first glimpse of a project Imagineers have been working on since last year. Splash Mountain at both Disneyland Park in California and Magic Kingdom Park in Florida soon will be completely reimagined. The theme is inspired by the all-time favorite animated Disney film, The Princess and the Frog.
Yay.
Such a great film and such a great idea of what to do with that attraction.
Definitely. And plus, although it's the same attraction, I'm sure for the most part it will be a new experience because you get to see a different theming, different storyline. So looking forward to it.
I'm so excited for this. Here's what they go on to say. They say that they're going to pick up this story right after the final kiss and join Tiana and Louis on a musical adventure featuring some of the powerful music from the film as they prepare for their first ever Mardi Gras performance. So they're even throwing throwing a little Mardi Gras theme into it as well.
That's awesome.
I could not be more excited
I know.
for this. I'm almost as excited as Hamilton. Nah, not really. But I'm pretty excited about this.
Yeah, I am too. I love the idea, and I can just see the vividness that's going to come through on that attraction. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, they go on to say, Tiana is a modern, courageous, and empowered woman who pursues her dreams and never loses sight of what's really important. It's a great story with a strong lead character set against the backdrop of New Orleans and the Louisiana Bayou. If you haven't seen The Princess and the Frog, what are you waiting for? It's a great film with amazing music.
I was just going to say, the music
animation
is fabulous.
is spectacular. It's just really, really good.
The story is just so touching and so...
Yeah.
All I can say, I mean, that one's come out in a lot of our top 5 songs or storylines related to that. So.
For sure. So, Charita Carter is the senior creative producer leading the project at Walt Disney Imagineering. And she shared, quote, like Princess Tiana, I believe that courage and love are the key ingredients for wonderful adventures. I am delighted to be part of bringing this fun-filled experience to our guests, end quote. The voice of Princess Tiana and Tony Award-winning actress Anika Noni Rose, who, by the way, this didn't come up in today's episode, but when I was doing some research on it, when they were workshopping the show, she actually played, I believe it was Angelica in the workshop, which I didn't know. So even another Disney tie into this.
Sure.
Anyway, going back to the story, Anika Noni Rose shared, quote, it is really exciting to know that Princess Tiana's presence in both Disneyland and Magic Kingdom will finally be fully realized. As passionate as I am about what we created, I know the fans are going to be over the moon. The Imagineers are giving us the Princess and the Frog Mardi Gras celebration we've been waiting for, and I'm here for it, end quote.
I'm getting teary-eyed. I don't know why.
Great?
It's exciting.
It is.
I love it. I love that theme. Love the story.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Oh, I'm really thrilled for this. The artwork, why can't I think of the name of it? The artwork for what it's going to look like
the storyboard.
Right. It looks spectacular. You know, the tree that is where the flume comes down at, and it's kind of like this barren tree now. They're going to make it look like it's going to be like a full tree with lightning bugs in it and stuff. It's going to, I'm sure it'll be spectacular at night. I just couldn't be more excited. This is going to look great.
Well, it'll be a nice addition at Disneyland too, to New Orleans Square, you know, and kind of sharing some of that tie-in together. So exciting.
Yes. That's the one thing people questioning on, you know, yes, it kind of ties into New Orleans Square at Disneyland. They're like, well, does it tie into Frontierland at a Magic Kingdom? I'm like, well, does it really matter? I mean, it's going to be a great attraction. I'm looking forward to it, and it's going to be awesome. As of right now, they say there's they have not announced any time as to when they're closing officially and when they're reopening yet, but I'm sure they'll keep us well informed on what's going on with that. So moving on, we received some casting details for a new Pirates of the Caribbean film this week. That's kind of exciting.
Yeah. Looking forward to that.
Yes, this from Variety.com. Margot Robbie will star in a female-led version of Pirates of the Caribbean for Disney, with Birds of Prey writer, who, of course, Margot Robbie starred in Birds of Prey as well as Harley Quinn, with writer Christina Hodson on board to write the script. Disney is in early development of the entitled project that is being developed separately from another Pirates of the Caribbean reboot that was unveiled in October, with franchise veteran Ted Elliott and Chernobyl creator Craig Mazin hired to develop that story. However, Jerry Bruckheimer, who produced all 5 Pirates movies, is attached to produce both the Elliott Mazin and the Robbie Hodson projects. So
that's great news.
Yeah, so it's going to be under the same person who's led all the Pirates of the Caribbean movies so far. Of course, Robbie received an Oscar nomination earlier this year for Bombshell and portrayed Sharon Tate in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She will also reprise her role as Harley Quinn in James Gunn's upcoming Suicide Squad sequel. So she's been out there doing some great things. And now this Pirates of the Caribbean movie, very excited. Of course, very few details about it. We're just getting some casting announcements. But still, we love the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. We just kind of love that world that they live in. I think it's going to be exciting to see what they do with this.
Definitely. And it's always fun and exciting to hear about upcoming things. And I think right now that's really great.
Yeah, me too. So just one more quick story that I want to get to. Unfortunately, Disneyland's reopening has been pushed back a little bit, undetermined time right now. They are still keeping Downtown Disney opening on July 9th, I believe is the date. They said that the problem was that because California's trying to figure out how they're going to get through this phase 3 opening with some of the outbreaks we've had recently, that they won't find out about that until after July 4th. And because of that, that's too little time for them to know how to tell cast members, to inform them on how to, to perform all the functions they need to perform up to California health standards. So rather than try and rush this thing, they're going to just push it back a little bit. Unfortunately, it won't be open, as Michelle predicted, on the anniversary date. But better to be safe than sorry. I'm glad that they're handling these things the best way, as Lee Cockrell told us several episodes ago that they would. When Disney says it's right, it's probably the right time.
Right, and to make sure everybody is as safe as they can be. So that's, although it's disappointing news, it's for the right reason, for a good reason, and we're happy to see that, like you said, as Lee said, the Disney company is really working closely with the officials that can really help guide for a safe and fun opening.
Right, and
or reopening.
And they just want to make sure everybody's on the same page, and on the right course, and I'm sure when it gets done, it's going to be magnificent, and we're excited for it. So that's it for the Disney Stories of the Week. However, we never leave you without some sort of tip that might help you on that eventual next vacation, whether it be when Disneyland reopens, Walt Disney World's about to reopen, Disney Cruise Line eventually will get back going. Run Disney will eventually get back going. And we want you to be prepared for all of that. So we like to give you a tip every week. And we always start with Michelle. One, because she is the Eliza to my Alexander Hamilton. But also she has the very best tip. So let's get right to it. Here is Michelle's tip of the week.
You're so sweet. So I've talked about this issue in the past related to traveling with kids, especially in the park, and the potential of getting separated. And actually, this is kind of a part 2 of some of the things I've mentioned in the past. And it came to mind actually with the issue that people are wearing masks, and for kids, with everybody around them wearing masks, it's hard to really distinguish people. Even your own family might be harder to distinguish, And so having some things that can help them or help others, help your children if you do get lost from, if they get separated from the group. So, one of the things is, again, since masks are in place, is maybe having something distinctive on your mask, a little symbol that everybody in your family has the same little symbol on it, or wearing something in your head that again can set you apart. It's kind of like when you go to the airport and you're trying to find your luggage, and there's like a million luggage that come out looking like your own, and just putting a bow on it can help you find it quicker. So again, think of your child and, pointing it out that, hey, this is what, we have on our mask, or this is what I have in my head, or whatever. And the other thing is for your child. So if they're a pin trader or like to wear a lanyard, you could put your cell phone number in there, that in case a cast member, is trying to help reach you, it helps them find you quicker. If they're not carrying a lanyard, you could do something like in their shoe tag, or, on their shoelace, have something there as well. But again, just things that would help your child find you and a cast member find you.
Yeah, I love it. It's a great idea. And I really love when you were bringing up the marking on the masks. We so many times families go to Walt Disney World Resort, Disneyland, whatever, and they all get these custom shirts made, like first family trip, or, so-and-so family vacation, or whatever. There's so many of these people that do that now that are making custom masks so you can put things on them. Why not, just go ahead and, you're going to have to wear the mask anyway, play along, have some fun, and have it be, the so-and-so family, vacation mask or whatever,
True.
And then, yes, your kids can find you that much easier because they know what those masks look like.
Right,
so
that's
really
a good point.
good tip. Really good tip.
Thank you.
Michelle always has the very best tips.
You're sweet. And it's helpful that even if you're not at one of the Disney parks, just if you're
anywhere,
out in
the
an
mall,
area,
whatever,
exactly,
park, anything. Yeah, definitely. Good tip.
Thank
Michelle's
you.
tips, always the best tips.
Oh, you're sweet. Yours?
My tip, well, this week is all about Hamilton, as it should be as we lead up to it. Actually, the whole group of us, you, me,
Right.
Keenan, Rachael, we gave you many tips on Hamilton this week. So I'm going to let those just lay and just say, listen back. Those are all great tips to prepare you for. You're listening to Hamilton. But the one more thing I'm going to drop on you is that the Disney Dishes blog this week, selfish plug, whatever, plug. We are going to be preparing you to watch Hamilton with a variety of Hamilton themed cocktails this week. So I will want you to pay attention to social media. Go to the Disney Dishes blog and check it out if you want to have a little libation to enjoy your viewing of the $10 founding father without a father to find Hamilton. We're going to have a bunch of them out there.
Right.
Things like America's favorite fighting French martini, the Hamel Colada, the Alexander Hamilton Fizz, I think it is another one,
Right.
the Bourbon Manhattan. We're going to, in the eye of the hurricane, we're going to have a few drinks out there for you to enjoy. One of those is bound to hit your wheelhouse of what you enjoy.
Right.
So,
And we might have one or two non-alcoholic ones.
yeah, really? Why? No. A lot of these can be made into virgin versions of these, or we may have some non-alcoholic.
I have an idea for at least
well,
one.
good. Why? No, just kidding. No, it's great. We want the whole family.
Drink in between.
We want the whole family to get involved,
Right.
so we will definitely do that as well. So pay attention to us on social media. Watch the Disney Dishes blog. We'll have all sorts of new, interesting cocktails for you to check out and enjoy Hamilton that much more.
Right. And let us know what you're going to be using to
Yeah.
celebrate, whether it's fun food that's associated with the play or some of the cocktails, or you may have some of your own ideas for drinks. So let us know what your plans are.
Absolutely. Yes, definitely hit us up. There are many ways you can hit us up. Best place to find us, by the way, is on our own website, HyperionAdventuresPodcast.com. You can always sign up for the newsletter. That's one way to
right.
hit us up, or to get to be knowing the more about the show anyway.
Yes. And you'll be glad because it's a fun newsletter.
It's a funky newsletter. Very funky.
I don't know. I still say you put the fun in the funky.
As long as I don't put the funk in funky.
You do not. You put the fun.
Funk. Whew. That's why
Fun.
she sits over there. Also, please
Right.
follow us on social media. We're very active on social media with the likes of Keenan and Rachael, for that matter, on Part of Our World podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Hyperion Podcast, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest at Hyperion Adventures Podcast. We do have a YouTube channel. Please check us out on YouTube. All you need to do is go do a search on YouTube for Hyperion Adventures Podcast. We'll come right up. And then if you just hit subscribe, any video, you'll know whenever one of our videos comes out, just like hopefully this one.
Yes.
If I don't screw another one up.
Well, you're getting better.
I am
You're
getting
learning
better.
a lot, so very proud of you.
Very slowly, but I am getting better. And of course, you can always contact us through email at HyperionAdventurespodcast@gmail.com. Great way to suggest a topic, answer any questions that we have, or just to say hi. We love hearing from you, and that's a great way to get in contact.
Yeah, it's
with
always
us.
fun hearing from people. And always fun and exciting when we do receive a review, whether it's stars only or an actual review. We love it and we appreciate it.
We really do appreciate it. And all of our people that have dropped us reviews so far, anybody who decides to do it in the future, we love it. We appreciate it so much. You guys
Definitely.
are amazing, as are all of our listeners.
Yes.
You are all amazing. Thank you for listening to the Hyperion Adventures podcast. We look forward to sharing some time with you again next week. Until that time, I'm Tom,
I'm Michelle.
and we hope that you have a Hamorific week.
Bye.
So what did I miss?